Okay, gonna just run through a couple things. I don't know. Dr. Sturgeon asked me to put some quick things together. Don't know how much each of you have been in here, but just a couple quick things. In an observation, one thing that I was concerned about was being able to script and then go back at a later time and connect the competencies. So this should look very familiar. I always use the planned for the 10-minute walkthroughs and the unplanned for the 45-minute long, just so I can decipher between the two and know what I've done on each. A conversation that we probably need to have as a group is how we're going to go about the goal setting, if we are going to click this or not click it in an observation, and then hit begin. This part is going to look a little different, but this is the area where you script. Same as always. So you just put things in, as normal. Then at the end, when you want to go in and code the evidence, you'll go in, you'll see on the side all the evidence you've taken. In order to connect each one, you highlight it. You can see the difference. It's gray when you do that. And then you can go through. And one thing, in order to make it mark as meets standard or does not meet standard, you actually have to click on this part, because if you notice, it'll mark it and code it, but it will just code it as though you tracked it. It doesn't necessarily give it a ranking of meets standard or does not meet standard. So as you go through, this is probably something else that we need to have a conversation about, because throughout the year, these are the yes or no's that are non-negotiable expectations. So once we see them, it's going to mark it as meets standard. We need to decide if each time we do an observation, if we don't see it, are we going to mark does not meet standard? Simply, it's going to be tough to see some of these things in a 10-minute walkthrough, particularly. So we need to kind of come to a conclusion on how we're going to do that. But the big thing is, like I said, you have to actually pick the does not meet or meet standard rather than just clicking it, because you'll notice it does. So as you do that, it collects all that information. You can see in the review, it goes through, collects all those. In order for these to show up in your evaluation, you have to finalize the observation, which you're going to do anyway, because we have to have them back to them within a few days anyway. So you'll finalize. I always email the person, but I'm going to take it off just for this one, since Chris Berry doesn't work here anymore. So then in the evaluation, and I'm going very fast, I didn't want to make the video excessively long. So this would be prior to setting up the final summative. This is where you would be able to go in to each. These are the non-negotiables. And it shows you what your rankings have been. So in order for you to get a final ranking, you have to go through each of these, and these are either 1 or 0s. They either did it or they didn't. So, and this is the one where a certain number out of 7 gets you a highly effective, a certain number gets you effective, and so forth. Okay. Then on goal setting, something else we need to consider is, while we're doing observations just for information purposes, are we going to score anything that we see within domain 2, or are we only going to look at whatever they chose? Because sometimes we don't necessarily have to code it, but it would be appropriate for them to know that they're doing a nice job engaging students or communicating effectively. Then on the flip side, some of these things are going to be next to impossible to see in any sort of walkthrough. You know, let's say they pick 2.5. That's going to be pretty tough for you to observe necessarily in 4 to 5 observations throughout the school year. So that one's going to be dictated more heavily on artifacts and participation in some of the professional development modules and so forth that we put together for them. So something else for us to kind of think about. But for whatever one you end up, you know, you go the 1 through 4. Let's say they picked the questioning for that, and it gives you the percentages, and it tells you does not meet standard or meet standard. Remember, on the goal setting, obviously everyone's starting at effective or highly effective. So once again, you'll have to finalize this, but you're really not going to get any information off of this. You're going to have to keep track of the number that they got right on the non-negotiables out of 7 in order to put in that final number. So you'll finalize that. Then obviously the final summative evaluation, it looks very similar, the setup again to last year. Obviously there are some slight differences. Obviously make sure you get the right one. As far as 15, 16 has the weights in. This is the same thing. You'll go through, you'll put in this is where you'll have to refer to the 6 out of 7, 4 out of 7, and so forth to give you your 1 through 4 ranking. Goal setting, for the most part, obviously should be a 3 or 4 unless they just fail to participate. And then your district-wide. This is where you will get your final label. And I always type in what the final value is, or final label is. There you have it.